Hi everyone, I'm Dan from JazzComposersPresent.com, an online space where composers, musicians, and listeners come together to celebrate the music we love. I'm joined today by Meg Okura, jazz violinist, composer, and leader of the Pan-Asian Chamber Jazz Ensemble. Meg is here to show us how to incorporate double stops into your compositions.
Hi. So if you're hearing a full chamber orchestra, but you only have an access to a violin and a cello, you may want to use some double stops. They're composer-led mid-sized to large ensembles that use either a single violin or a combination of a violin and a cello. And here are some ensembles that I've played with. Emilio Solla y la Inestable de Brooklyn, Erica Seguin and Sean Baker Jazz Orchestra, the Pan-Asian Chamber Jazz Ensemble, and with violin and a cello, I play with J.C. Sanford Jazz Orchestra and Eres Aviram Ensemble. So composers often use the violin to create envision sound when the project or particular composition are inspired by music that typically uses the violin, such as tango, Latin jazz, klezmer, bluegrass, trad jazz, or you can call it hot jazz, or world fusion jazz. So double stops lay pretty well in some of those styles, following basic rules. But even if you don't have compositions in those sort of idiomatic styles, double stops are very practical. So let's take a look at some double stops in the order of most ergonomic and flexible to least. So the 6 are the most ergonomic. Fingers follow the natural shape of the hands. You see, here's the natural shape, right? Kind of triangle. And 6 are also flexible because it allows the 3 different finger combinations: 1, 2, and 2, 3, and 3, 4. So 7s are still pretty ergonomic, but with only 2 finger combination: 1, 3, 1, 3, and 2, 4. Perfect fifths are a little different because we only use 1 finger at a time for 2 notes, right? But you get to use all 4 fingers. However, you must flatten the finger at a perfect angle to play them in tune. So many players and composers try to avoid fifths. So let's see how well I did on fifths. Octaves look and sound easy, right? But octaves, you only have 1 fingering combination, 1 and 4, and it uses 4th finger, which is very weak, and they're also least forgiving in terms of pitch. So it's getting more and more increasingly difficult. And now we're going to thirds, and thirds are the most common double stops, I think, but not so ergonomic anymore because you're putting the 3rd and 4th fingers, right, on the lower string. So, and then a 1st and 2nd finger on the higher string. So the hand is more twisted, right? More twisted. This is the natural position, but you have to go like this, right? So it's slightly less ergonomics. So perfect fourths are, have the same, perfect fourths and tritones has the same sort of twist, right? Like thirds. but they are less forgiving in terms of intonation. So the next one and the last is the seconds. I chose the seconds as my least favorite. Seconds have only one fingering combination, like the octave 1 and 4 with the pinky. And unlike octaves, it has even more, of the twisting of the wrist and stretching of the pinkies. But it is worth mentioning that there is such a thing as fingered octaves using the fingering combination, the 1, 3, and 2, 4. And they're very difficult to play. It's pretty impractical and honestly unusable. Also, tenths are not impossible, but they're much too wide for the average human females. So you don't have to write any tenths, except when you use open strings make double stops practically single stops. So as long as the player doesn't accidentally touch the open string, especially when you're using the upper note as the open string, then incorporating open strings is a good way to write double stops. There are actually impossible double stops. The reason why these double stops are impossible is that the upper note is lower than D3. Anything lower than D3 will have to be on the G string, which is the lowest string on the violin, which makes it impossible to play two notes on the same string as a double stop. So, don't use those double stops. It's impossible, not because I can't stretch my fingers or anything. It's just not possible. So that's it. Now you can write all kinds of double stops since you already know all of the rules about violin double stops. So I thought. But I often write really good double stops that look super easy to play, yet almost impossible to execute perfectly. So here are things that I need to remind myself often. So, pianissimo. We need a certain force to play more than one string at the same time. So pianissimo is not really our forte. Number 2, very long notes. A bow can be very unpredictable, and it is hard to move it slowly to produce sound consistently. So a double stop will be double the trouble, right? Number 3, slurred double stops are harder because of these limited finger combinations. So those are the things that double stops are not very good for. So what are double stops good for? The opposite of what I just mentioned. So fortes, fortissimos, short notes are great, including spiccatos, which is the technique of bouncing the bow off the strings, and pizzicatos, which is plucking. Tremolos are wonderful because it's essentially a very long note created by the repetition of super short notes. So that's it. So we will now listen to my composition titled Phantasmagoria for violoncello and bass clarinet. And this cut is from an album called Ourself Behind Ourself by Tasha Warren on clarinet and bass clarinet and Dave Eggar on cello. When you use double stops effectively, you can get a lot more than what you'd expect from a single violin. So please send us any of your double stops and let me try.
Thanks for watching today's mini lesson. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Drop any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos in the comment section down below. To watch our full-length events and participate in live Q&As with our presenting artists, head over to jazzcomposerspresent.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.